And this session may be of interest to anybody who's starting out on a journey with Mahara. However, if you've been using Mahara for a number of years, as many of you have, then you may well be a year or two ahead of where we are. So I just wanted to take this opportunity, similar to a presenter from this morning from BCU who mentioned being at a previous Mahara conference, wanting to share their experience and just take stock. So we'll be talking about the background briefly, how things have been developed, how that has gone, how we have survived a deadly attack of the deadlock bug, and how we continue to monitor the crops and look towards next year's harvest. If I'd had more time, I would have added some nice pictures of crops, but you'll just have to, and plants, but you'll just have to imagine those. So, as a background, our Mahara is externally hosted, along with our Moodle. Warwick has had Moodle as a centrally supported service for about 3 years now, and Mahara has been available, as it says there, open to all for a couple of years, since September 2013. Previous to that, anybody who expressed interest in Mahara could opt in, but it wasn't open to all, and that really didn't help any growth at all. I've got an asterisk there. Central Moodle was launched in October 2012, I should say, and Teresa's here and did a great presentation this morning. Where's Teresa? It's fair to say that Moodle and Mahara has been at Warwick a lot longer, and a lot of what we've done has built on the good work that's been done in languages, courtesy of Teresa and her colleagues. In year one, we had early adopters, mainly from education, and similar to others, there's a natural fit there when it comes to a portfolio, replacing a paper-based portfolio. Although workers in academic technologies have some experience previously as a teacher educator as well as a lecturer, and I did have the experience of one of my students losing their paper-based portfolio on the train, going to a meeting, had also had a child in a buggy at the time and left their paper-based portfolio. So it can happen, and I can't help thinking that if nothing else, it will prevent that problem, but I know that Moodle does a lot more than that. So early adopters in education, Centre for Professional Education, and we had initial interest, and this has been key, from student careers and skills, and they've been instrumental in our development, not necessarily in terms of the volume of use of Mahara yet, but they have helped us to develop and grow, as I hope I'll show you. In year two, so last year to this summer, we had, again, education, medical school using it a little. It's fair to say, actually, that the third year and fourth year trainee medics are actually going to be using the NHS portfolio. That's the one that they use when they go out into practice, and it makes sense that they use the professional portfolio rather than having to make use of two, although it's still used in other areas of the medical school. Centre for Lifelong Learning, where I'm currently doing a 2-day secondment, used it, not developed by myself but by Sarah Hattersley there, and again, student careers and skills and history and others. It'd be fair to say that we're still at a very early stage. I'll show you some statistics shortly, but very few individual academic departments, other than those I've mentioned, have really used it in anger yet, and we just have some small pockets and seeds, history, engineering, Warwick Manufacturing Group, in fact, WMG, and also this year's psychology, but they're the exception. So we had a typical collection that was developed in 13-14 for education, and again, in fact, Jo Trousdale, Teresa presented 2 years ago, and she piloted it with just 5 students, based indeed on lots of support she got from yourself, and then that grew the following year. But really interesting, and one or two people, somebody hinted at this earlier, but in the first year, students were told that the use of the portfolio was optional. So if they wanted to use a paper portfolio or they wanted to use Mahara, that was up to them. And again, some of the staff supporting that lacked confidence in the portfolio and would say, although there was a kind of general hope that students might use it, some of the academics or some of the support staff were themselves saying, well, it's up to you. If you want to do portfolio, that's fine by me. Feel free. So you can guess how popular that was. And it worked reasonably well, but the following year, when it was mandatory, the success, the expectation was there right from the start, and it really has flourished. Okay, in 13-14 also I mentioned student careers and skills. Something that was really important that happened. They were quite cautious about promoting the use of my portfolio for students to reflect in. They're not now, they're fully committed to it. But they wanted to get students on board, and we had a student development group, and they came and gave feedback. There was an interesting experience where they weren't actually asked to do anything, they were just asked to log in and then, what do you think? And it was one of those experiences where they say, well, I quite like the colour, looks a bit old-fashioned, and but they're not actually doing anything with it. But apart from that, we got some great stuff out of them, and it was part of that, and also the use by the Warwick University intern programme, where we give internships to our current students, that we got feedback from. One thing we did, and I suppose we've stolen ideas from elsewhere, definitely, we changed our name from Mahara to My Portfolio. We think that's helped. And we also improved the help guides. We've got a regular internal, every 2 months, Mahara user group, or My Portfolio user group as it is. This is the front of our portfolio, but with the help of those students, we and also stealing a few ideas from UCL and indeed others, Sam, for example, where's Sam, etc. Excellent help guides. We managed to improve the look and feel, and even for non-logged in users, just providing that sort of video of what it is. Most people don't look at this stuff, but it does give reassurance to staff as well as students. Also, what is my portfolio on the left-hand side there? Again, this might look familiar to other folks that use it, but just a little introduction, just to make it look a bit better. Our help guides have definitely improved. Last year they came on, and this year even better. This help guide, which is built as a collection, you might not be able to see very well in My Portfolio, was built by a student who was our own intern in our department, and he produced a great portfolio guide, a student-friendly guide to My Portfolio or Mahara. We've also created a Moodle course, so that folks can jump from My Portfolio Mahara straight into Moodle, and this has got a series of tasks and videos that you can work through as a self-supporting guide if you can't get to the training or make use of the other content. And we've also got a YouTube-based video guide playlist produced by Susan Vollmer at our university. I think that therefore will, of course, be open to all. I'll try and share some of this stuff if I haven't done it already. And we've deliberately put that in YouTube. Although we do have a video hosting service, we just think that it looks good, and that's where students get a lot of their stuff. My own daughter recently learned how to fry an egg courtesy of YouTube, so you can learn everything apparently. There you go. Right, here's some data just out of interest. Where 2013 we've got about this. This is before it was open to all. You have to ask us for permission if you want to use Mahara up to this point. It's a bit of a strange approach, but that's what we decided to do. The following year we had about 1,600 accounts, but how many of those were active, Jim? You're probably thinking. Good question. This year we've got we had in September 5,000 users. That compares to 2014, and approximately there, what does that tell us? About 500 or 600 logging in a week. As of today, or this weekend, when I was putting this together, we've probably got about 6,000, nearly 400 accounts, but lots of those accounts are people that log in accidentally and never do again, and think, oh, that looks interesting, I must use that sometime, and their life moves on. But I do keep a note of the number of active users in terms of who's logging in, and we've got currently about 1,000 unique logins a month, and currently about 600, the most we've had. So I don't think there'll be much bigger installations and much bigger users, but we've got a maximum login per day so far, 315. And compared to what's happening in Moodle, where we've got 15,000 users and thousands using it on a daily basis, it's small potatoes. But I know I'm preaching to the converted. We know that the stuff that these folks are doing in Mahara, where they are reflecting and where they are building their own content and being creative, is incredibly powerful and useful for them. So you can multiply that by 10 in terms of impact. That's my theory. Okay. Some things that have helped propagate Moodle in this recent last year or so, something developed by Sarah Hattersley from Centre for Lifelong Learning, but contributed to by a network of interested parties, academics and academic e-learning managers, is a Technologies for Academic Practice, and this is real good collaboration among staff. So all of the pages you're looking at here are pages that have been created, linked to from this page here to individual user accounts who've shared a secret URL perhaps, and produced content about Padlet or about learning design, curriculum design, digital literacy, etc., etc. And that's been a real good way to sort of create interest and show and share what can be done by staff, not just by students. Last year, again, I'm afraid this is the exception rather than the norm at Warwick at the moment, but 280 students submitted all sorts of stuff. They also did a video project, but that was separate to Mahara. But they used Moodle to submit a response to a research task in their year one in the following sort of way, and then that was assessed, and students were given feedback. However, I wouldn't want to oversell it in the sense that I'm sure the students enjoyed it. Lots of portfolios came in without pages, without pictures, so it may as well really maybe have just been done in a Word file. And also, many of the academics who were then assessing that work were simply given the link rather than going into Moodle. But it's a start, and it's been repeated this year. WMG, Warwick Manufacturing Group, have a third-year AP program with Jaguar Land Rover students who are in their third year of a degree program, and they're using Mahara this year for their research program and project, and they've been encouraged by the academic in charge to use this template to structure their response, if you like, and it's more than that. That's just the first couple of pages. Student careers and skills have been instrumental. I mentioned them earlier. They have used My Warwick Journey to encourage students to think about their wider journey, skills development, volunteering, work activity, etc., beyond their academic programme. And this will be developing this year. It's already been launched under the banner of Tell Your Story. The idea is to encourage students, don't make stuff up, record what you do and reflect on that, and use that in a similar way that other people have mentioned to support your application for progression and employment. And they are encouraging, you'll see, my portfolio is one way to make the most of your Warwick journey. So it isn't, we don't say to students you have to use my portfolio, but unless you've got another tool, then why not? At Warwick, by the way, we allow students to have 1 year access to the portfolio post end of course. We'd like to extend that, but we'd also like to see, with help from hosts and the like, Mahara partners, a place where students can host their content once they've moved on from their university. So a central neutral host would be something that I would wish for. How are we doing for time? Okay, we've got. Just wanted to mention the deadlock bug. Great, we progressed on. We got up to all these numbers. Let's say 5,000 accounts and maybe heading towards 800, 1,000 users. When I came back from holiday, I'm not allowed to take any more holidays. In September, the new intake of PGCE students had all been put into a room separately in workshops of maybe 30 and encouraged, of course, here's Mahara, here's the template, click here to copy. Now, at the point that students all copied the template, most of them got an error. In fact, there was a 70% failure rate, and you can imagine all this success, and it only takes these sorts of incidents to really drag things down. And it was bad at the time. I can look back with a bit more perspective now, if you like, but it wasn't good at the time. And it turns out that there's a particular bug which has been submitted and recognised, but I'll tell you that you don't need 20 to 30 users. You can recreate the bug with just 2 users. If 2 people copy the same page or template at the same time, and it doesn't have to be too significant, then you get one of those students can get an error message. It only tends to occur in MySQL, and it only tends to occur in some instances. I wouldn't pretend to know the technology behind it, but luckily we've got somebody working with us, Russell Boyatt, who does and has managed to contribute a fix to the community, which has partially solved the problem, but not completely, because we've still got the problem. We're working with our external host, and indeed Catalyst New Zealand, I believe, are currently, as we speak, investigating the situation with our particular stack and working with our host to solve a problem. The problem was that it was our largest group of users and it was their first time use, so that wasn't good. That clearly put some of them off and knocked the confidence. We used good communication information, and if anything, the way that we've recovered is by making people aware of it, warning them not to get students to copy all at the same time. If I wanted you to copy your portfolio now, I'd have to say, well, don't do it now, do it in your own time, or would you mind? Now you, etc. That's the only way it would work. But we have recovered. The bug, however, is still significant. It still causes a problem. I won't go into perhaps all of the details, but we've even changed the wording in the error to say not bug, but site busy. Sorry. Try refreshing your page. So we've put a bit of spin on that. We're working on it. But if we can't get a solution, then we will have to move to Postgres rather than MySQL, which I have a feeling will have some other advantages. Oh, there he is. That we've got rid of him. Fantastic. If only it was that easy. That's the only fun bit in my presentation. There we go. So does anyone want to see that again? One more time. Okay. But this is something. So what I've showed you so far, nothing is particularly new, although some of you might not be aware. That if you want to know more about the bug, do ask. But what we've started to develop at Moodle, thinking about tracking and monitoring the crops, is this, and I'll just see if this works. Russell Boyatt again. RUSSELLB on Twitter, if you get a chance to say how wonderful he is. He's back at the office. And let me have a quick look here, see if this works, and see if I can show you it. Or I'll tell you what, just to save time, I'll show you the live version, but let me show you the slides in case I run out of time. So here we can see an activity log for the last 12 weeks. This is showing whenever anything is saved, an artifact is, any particular item is saved. So it gives an indication of busyness. We also have now, which I'm really excited about, is a way of drilling down to see which departments are using Mahara. The way that this is done is that users in our database and in Moodle have a department associated with them, and Russ has done some clever jiggery-pokery behind the scenes, and he's able to show us over the last month, last 3 months, last 6 months. In fact, that must be the last 6 months probably, because those history students there are the ones from last year, whereas if I looked at it last month, history would be down the charts. So that's a great way. Student careers and skills, they work at department level, and they're always asking us, can you tell us, can you track what students have been doing? Moodle is great at tracking. Mahara has probably the right philosophy that says, well, hang on a sec, what students do with the tool is up to them. If they want to share it with you, that's up to them. But at least we've got a way here of showing activity. But we have, just hot off the press, Russ has come up with a way of now being able to monitor individual students. So we have a way, who we share this with and what we do with it is yet to be decided. But we hope that we'll be able to share this with our e-learning managers in individual departments, so that under agreed procedures they will be able to monitor individual use. And I think student careers and skills in particular, who haven't seen this yet, will be very interested. I said to Russ, wow, there may well be some interest in folks getting hold of this. What do you think? Do you want them to contact you, or what would be best? He is happy to share it. He thinks he can perhaps put it into core code or share it through mahara.org, but he does have a willingness to share this with the community. So perhaps watch this space or get in touch. Somebody asked, I've got to finish in a second, we have 1 gig as our quota for students, but you can see from this graph that we can monitor that if someone comes knocking on our door and says, oh, students need 2 gig, 1 gig's not enough, in actual fact you can see that we're being too generous. We should really give them 500 meg. So this is a nice way of monitoring our usage of that quota. For the future, we hope that we can do more student as producer, that Mahara can be used more to support personal tutor meetings, and the increased careers and skills initiative at departmental level will continue to help it grow. So a bit of a whistle-stop tour of our experience, but I think that's my time and I hope that's been useful. Thank you.